Hey guys, welcome to today's podcast, and we are so excited. We have the Happy Healthy guys with us, and if you're watching this, you'll see right behind them they have the Happy Healthy guys, and they went from being overweight, sick, and depressed, and almost dead from cancer to being healed, happy, and thriving. So we are so excited. Right now we have two doctors with us, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you. So go ahead. You want to start, Dr. Rob?
Sure. So I'm Dr. Rob.
Yep. And that makes me Dr. Randy. And we are so excited to be here, Chantel. Thank you for this opportunity. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. So we have Rob, and it's Rob Vasquez and Randy Johns.
Cool. Got it.
So tell us a little bit about your story, because it was Randy that had the late stage cancer, correct?
Yeah, insane. That was me. It was July of 2010. I was diagnosed with late stage metastatic melanoma cancer. Started on my back, and then it spread to my lymphatic chain, had moved into my liver, and then ended up in my stomach. And as you can imagine, I was going downhill pretty quickly. And what's interesting at that time, because we're both chiropractors by trade, and I was about 8 years into practice. And, I was the guy helping everybody else be healthy. And here I am being told that you've got months to live, that essentially get your affairs in order. I was 36. So there was a lot of shame that went involved with that diagnosis, embarrassment, really a lot of denial, and hard to believe, how did I end up here? And as much as I thought I knew, and as much as I did know, and the things I was doing to help others create a better life and through a holistic lifestyle, there were key mistakes that I was making that allowed me to end up in a situation where it almost cost me my life. So a lot of dialogue took place in my mind back then. But I think what saved my life, because obviously it's a really long story. We'll keep it as short as we can. But what really saved my life is that I really believed that health is the normal and that disease is the abnormal. That cancer wasn't making me sick, right? That I was already sick, right? I wasn't adapting to my environment chemically, physically, and emotionally. And that's why I was expressing cancer. So the journey wasn't ever to treat the condition, because really, in my opinion, health and disease are the exact same thing. Think about that. Health and disease are the same thing. It's the body doing the right thing under the circumstances. And I wanted to change my circumstances. And I didn't feel like, going through chemotherapy or radiation or any type of a drug trial was going to help me heal the wound of losing my father. A lot of metabolic mistakes I was making with my nutrition, my out of balance lifestyle, working way too many hours. Those were the causes of why I wasn't adapting. So treating the cancer didn't make a lot of sense to me.
So one of the things that you guys really help people with is losing weight. So if they're constantly struggling with weight loss, they're having low energy levels, they're having uncontrollable appetite, talk about what you have found is the solution.
Well, and I think we can talk, even to give you the answer to that, we have to go back even into my history and in my story, being that as a 13-year-old kid, I weighed about 210 pounds, was 5'4", and struggling miserably with my own weight. And I was like a lot of people, where I believed it was a genetic thing because my mother struggled with her weight as well. So I watched her doing what everybody else was doing, and that was dieting, extreme dieting, a lot of exercise. So I was motivated to want to lose weight. I didn't like going to school because I was being bullied. I was ashamed about the way that I looked. And so I was motivated to do something different. And it was, okay, I'm going to do what my mom's doing. I'm going to start eating a lot less and exercising all the time. So I started starving myself. I would go like 6 days where I wouldn't eat. I was anorexic, classic anorexic. Went from the 210 pounds all the way down to, Chantel, 124 pounds within 6 months. It didn't make me healthy. Was I thin? Yes, absolutely. But I was really sick, and I noticed that, I had different chronic illnesses and sickness, headaches, like a lot of people get all the time. And I was like, all right, there's got to be a better way to do that. But that really started getting me to start asking better questions about what I was eating, some of the things that I was doing. And so I started eliminating a lot of foods that just weren't good for you. However, what that also meant was I was still reducing calories. So regardless if I was doing no sugar or I was eating organic foods, and this is all the way up into adulthood, you know what? I still really struggled with my weight. So I had to be perfect with my diet, perfect with my exercise just to maintain a healthy weight. So when Randy was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, I had an injury where I could hardly walk because the inflammation in my lower back was so bad. I had blown out some discs. And because I couldn't walk, I could no longer exercise anymore. So it was hard being perfect with that. And I gained over 65 pounds. So there I was back at 210 pounds again, going, okay, there's got to be a better way. And then we learned a lot of things about the science of metabolism when we were getting him healthy and getting him well. And so it's because of applying what it is that we learned with him, because if you look at all chronic illness, chronic conditions, whether it's cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all of these things live downstream of a real metabolic problem. And so because of that, I'm like, you know what, if he could be able to get well from cancer, then I could also be able to change my metabolic profile and I could get well as well. So by applying the science of what it is that we learned, I lost that 65 pounds. That was 14 years ago. Haven't gained any of that weight back. I no longer struggle with my weight. In fact, we were just in Los Angeles at a mastermind retreat for the last, it's like 5 or 6 days, eating pretty much all the same things that I was, if I would have eaten those things before 14 years ago, would have caused me to come back and have gained like 10 pounds. And I actually lost 2 pounds while we were gone. And it's because now my metabolism works the way it's supposed to. So I think the question really becomes is, what are some things that we either need to eliminate from what it is that we're putting into our body, or what are the changes that we need to make in order to really start healing our body's metabolism?
Yeah, so let's do that. I actually ask a lot of our guests, I call it red light, green light, and yellow light. So red light are things that you're like, this is never coming in my mouth. Like, I'm never eating this, or I'm never doing this. Yellow is like, every once in a blue moon, I'm gonna, probably engage in this. And then green's like, yeah, this is what I do all the time. So kind of talk to us a little bit about the day and the life of the happy, healthy guys.
Yeah, that's good. Good question. So we have an acronym that we use, Colette. You'll like this. It's called SURF. Simply Eat Real Food, right? And that's really how we measure our nutrition, as we really run it through the acronym. Is this real? We talk about, food. Here's the ultimate test to see if the food is real. Set it on your counter, walk away for 2 weeks, and then come back. If it looks the same, it's not food. Food will break down, it will deteriorate, it will spoil. So we really focus the green light, so to say, on eating real food and nutrition. And that is so key, Chantel, because the reality is, if you eat real food, your body knows what to do with it, right? It knows exactly what nutrients to take, what minerals, the fiber, all the things that you need to sustain a healthy metabolic profile. It knows it. When you eat fake food, it actually creates more hunger. And a lot of these fake foods are loaded with things that are meant for shelf life. Clearly, they're not meant for human consumption. So go back to the basics. Simply eat real food.
Yeah, so that would make for sure, red light would be seed oils.
Yeah, stop immediately.
Yeah, never, no way, no how, never ever do seed oils. These things are toxic. They clog up your cells. They wreck your body's metabolic profile. There are things like a canola oil, for example, that you can even go down to Whole Foods and buy that. So people are buying these things thinking that they're doing something that's healthy for them, when in fact it's actually destroying their metabolism.
Yeah, the seed oil is big. I'm sure your audience is aware how toxic these oils are. In fact, any type of omega-6, which is really what seed oil is, like your corn oil, your safflower, your soy, the sunflower oils, these 18 carbon chain unsaturated fatty acids, they actually down-regulate your metabolic profile. It sets your body up for hibernation. And our metabolisms are not built to go into hibernation. You want to a vibrant, strong, healthy, robust metabolism, these oils actually downregulate that. So getting rid of them is step number one. There's just never a reason to eat them anymore, especially when the healthiest fats are the one that taste better anyway. Things like grass-fed butter, right? Getting quality animal fats, beef tallow, the stearic acid that comes in that, eating real foods. Those fats are stable under heat, light, and oxygen. They don't create the oxidative stress. And so you really do your metabolism a huge favor by avoiding seed oil and replacing with real animal fats, or even like a coconut oil if you're looking for a non-animal based fat that's good for your metabolism.
I don't know about you guys, but I am stressed. And if you're feeling overwhelmed this holiday season, then I get it. With all the family get-togethers, it is just a relentless source of stress. But anyway, there is something that I've got called Stress Guardian, and it's actually made by Bioptimizers, the people who make the magnesium breakthrough, which I love, love, love. But anyway, they are literally made this new product. It has 14 adaptogenic herbs, and it just regulates your stress. I just actually took some right this second, and it's awesome. If you go to stressguardian.com/wasteaway and put in wasteaway for 10% off your first order, it's stressguardian.com/wasteaway. Go there now. So I just moved to Florida and in like CFP Beach, and there's this restaurant that I found, and it's called Fresh Kitchen, and they cook, everything they cook is cooked with 100% olive oil, and everything they have is gluten-free. And so it's just so cool to be able to find a restaurant. Like even when I was in Virginia, like places that you thought were healthy, they were cooking with seed oils,
100%.
Even there was this one restaurant that like the salad dressing, you can buy it to go. So I was looking at it and it said like organic olive oil was the first ingredient. And so I was like, great. So I took it home. As soon as I took it home, I started looking at it more carefully. The first ingredient was organic olive oil. And then it was like second, third, fourth. And then I looked at the fifth ingredient and it was canola oil. So it's like, even when you think, hey, this is something great with no seed oil, then all of a sudden it's like, they kind of deceive you sometimes.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because there's restaurants that you can even go to where they'll tell you that it was cooked in olive oil, and that's where people need to be careful and literally ask them, hey, can you go look at the actual container that it came in, because they can order this stuff in mass quantities where it says 1% olive oil on it and 99% of it's canola oil, and they can still call it olive oil. So that's where you got to be careful. Obviously, you can also tell just the viscosity, the way it smells when you're looking at it. So there are many times when we're eating at a restaurant and say, hey, no seed oils. I'm like, oh, it's olive oil. I'm like, okay, bring it to us. And they bring it, and you can tell it's obviously not 100% olive oil. So yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. If you stick it in the refrigerator and it doesn't start to solidify at home, it's not real, because obviously omega-6 is a polyunsaturated and it stays liquid at that temperature. So real olive oil will start to harden, much like a saturated fat, olive oil being a monounsaturated. So that's one of the ways. But you nailed it. That's really where most people get exposure to seed oil, is in the food industry, the things that we're buying that are packaged in the stores, and then obviously going to a restaurant because it's cheap and they're cutting costs. But it's probably, in our opinion, probably the number one metabolic toxin, and it's not even close, is the introduction of industrial grade polyunsaturated omega-6 seed oil. It is literally making us sick. It's poisoning us to death.
And there's actually an app out there. It's called SOS, Seed Oil Scout.
Yeah.
And it says, dying like your life depends on it. And it's literally an app where you can find restaurants that actually cook with no seed oils. And it's actually so sad of how few restaurants there are that actually have that. But do you guys have any tips on that? Like maybe, using the app or anything else to try to, a lot of times, like you said, the olive oil is, kind of cut with other things. So what else can you do to kind of protect yourselves?
Well, one of the tricks that you can do to protect yourself is when you're going to eat at a restaurant is letting them know. Nowadays, they always ask the first question many times, when you show up at the restaurant, the hostess will say, hey, are you allergic to any foods, or do you have any food allergies? Right off the bat, I'll say, yeah, absolutely I do. I am allergic to seed oils. And so I would let the wait staff know as well. And it's not wrong to even say you're allergic to something, because an allergy is something that your body is responding to in a negative way. And so the key though is when you say allergy, is they have to take a look at what it is that they're giving to you, because they want to make sure that you don't, go into anaphylactic shock there at the table or die or anything like that. So that's a trick or a tip for people that are like, you know what, I don't know that I could even go out to eat and still be able to eat that way. So when you say that though, is just say, hey, you know what, make sure that my meal is actually cooked in butter, because butter is high in butyric acid. Your body, it's very gut healing as well. So that's something that I would say as a tip.
That's the best tip for sure, because they're not going to mess
really,
around. They don't want you dying at the table. Yeah.
I agree. I actually, if you guys go to nontoxicfamily.com, there is an allergy card that anyone can print, and it literally says allergy card, and it says, dear chef, I have a food allergy to vegetable oils. In order for me to have an allergic reaction, I must avoid. And then it's canola oil, grape, all the bad oils. Yep. And then it says, I can have avocado oil and all the things you can have. And you can just print it, and you can, make copies of it. And when you go to a restaurant, you just hand it to them. So you can go to Non-Toxic Family and get that card. It's just a free printout. You can get it and print it out. But I 100% agree. And I've had some people make some comments. I mentioned it before, and they're like, well, that's lying, saying that you have an allergy. And I'm like, no, it's not. My body, anybody, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Your body is allergic, whether you want to admit it or not.
Exactly.
You don't just automatically get hives all over your body. Our bodies were not meant to process that kind of oil. Your body is allergic, so it 100% is not a lie. Would you agree with that?
100%.
You just nailed it. I mean, listen, whether you die immediately from the poison or you die slowly over time from the poison, it is a poison. And everybody is allergic to industrial seed oil, because we are organisms that are designed to consume a product of that nature. We're not saying never eat nuts or seeds. There's things you can do to prepare them properly. There's ways to do this. But I can tell you right now, if you've ever had to crack open a walnut to eat one, I bet you don't eat 50 of them. You're probably going to only eat 2 or 3 because of the work required to actually get to the meat of that nut. So yeah, just the bigger issue really is being aware, being intentional. And then, you know what? It's okay to tell your server, don't feel embarrassed that you don't want this in your food. And even some really nice restaurants are still going to, heck, you can even go to Whole Foods, Chantel, right? And they've got canola oil everywhere. So it's just something you have to be intentional about. If there's just one thing you want to do, it really is eliminate these industrial seed oils. It's that toxic.
So good. Okay. Tell us a couple more red flag items, some red lights that you won't pass through.
Yeah, staying on what we're talking about, even with oils, I would say even an MCT oil or a medium chain triglyceride. And the reason being is because a medium chain triglyceride is not isolated like that in nature, right? So a medium chain triglyceride is going to be 6 carbons to 12 carbons long. It's not just going to be just one carbon. And so it's kind of the way you even would make a trans fat. So the way they're made is by isolating these carbons that are not naturally like that. So because of that, your body's going to have a hard time digesting that, which is why people that ingest a lot of MCT oils are doing, for example, like a ketogenic diet, where they'll just be pounding MCT oil, their gut can't process it. Because the gut can't process it, they end up with what is termed as disaster pants or a lot of diarrhea because of that. But that's the reason why. And so I would go to doing a full spectrum oil like a short chain triglyceride, for example, that is only 5 carbons long, rich in butyric acid, healing for the gut. You can cook it at very high temperatures. You cannot cook MCT oil.
If you've ever tried, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Metal
smells
smell.
like metal.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can't cook in an oil, I wouldn't eat it. That's a good advice there for sure. And then even moving away from the oils.
No, I want to stay right there because
Okay, all right.
I want to stay there because I'm sure a lot of people listening to this is like, wait a minute, I've heard that MCT oil is so good for you. It's even good when you're fasting. And now we're hearing that it's not good. So dive in a little bit deeper and explain exactly why it's not good. Besides the fact, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
If you can't cook it and it turns out to be a disaster, how is your body going to respond to that? I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? If you can't cook in it, it's probably not something your body needs. But, it's kind of like what Dr. Rob was talking about, Chantel. It's fractionated. So it's been broken down out of its normal structure. So a lot of your medium chain triglycerides, your your C6s, your C8s, your C10s, your C12s, that carbon backbone chain, like coconut oil, for example. Coconut oil has all those medium chain fats that are naturally in the fat, and you can obviously cook with a coconut oil. In fact, it can be a great cooking oil. But when you take like a C8, like a caprylic acid, and you fractionate it and you now remove it from its normal structure that you would find in nature, it's not the same thing. So that's what he's referring to when he's talking about breaking these fats down in isolation, which is why you can't cook with them. It's not how you would naturally come into contact with them in nature, and why they can be dangerous for a lot of people. A lot of people get a lot of gut issues. It'll perforate the bowel and you'll feel it because you eat it, and then you'll get loose stools very, very quickly. So we like to focus on getting more back to what our ancestors would have eaten, things you would normally find in nature. That's why we love butter. That's why we love coconut oil. That's why we love SCT oil. It's a short chain triglyceride oil that you would find in its normal state, where you're not going to have the gut distress. You're not going to cause those problems. That would be, is that kind of help there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So explain what the SCT oil is exactly.
Yeah. Another great question. So we've all heard of MCT oil, right? Medium chain triglyceride. So SCT oil is a short chain triglyceride. Okay. So now you're talking about getting into, like Dr. Rob was talking about, those carbon backbones that are shorter, the C5s. Really, it's C4, which is butyrate. You've got acetate and propionate, the C3 and the C2. These are gut-friendly fats that your body actually makes. So that's the preferred source of fuel, butyrate, for all the colonocytes in your microbiome. And we all know the importance of having a healthy and a happy gut. And I would say most people do not have good gut health. And if you don't have good gut health, there's no way in the world you can really be healthy. And the problem is, with all these damage to our microbiomes, the body, which if it's healthy, could take carbohydrates, it could ferment them, and it can make those short chain fats. That's how essential they are. But if your microbiome is a wreck, you can't ferment these carbs, you cannot make these fats, you will become deficient. And a short chain fatty acid deficiency is devastating, not only to your gut, but to your overall immune system and your metabolism.
Yeah, so let me just repeat that. So people who are listening, SCT, which stands for short chain triglycerides, basically it's an even shorter in length than MCTs. They're absorbed quickly. They're rapidly metabolized by the liver, right?
Yeah.
And they're like MCTs, but I feel like everyone's heard of MCTs, but no one's heard of short chain triglycerides, or SCTs. Yeah. Do you agree? Like, everyone's like MCT oil, MCT, but no one, it's now coming up now. So what are examples of SCTs?
So an example of a SCT, which is what we discovered when he had cancer, and we went to Spain to be able to get him help with a doc there, would be like white cheese, for example, is rich in these short chain fats.
Like an aged cheese, right? That's going to be raw. Yeah, because you've got all the benefits, the probiotics, the short chain fats. They're super rich in short chain fats, obviously. Yeah. Cheese.
What about like butter or ghee or...
Butter and ghee, great sources. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And then the best source is just pure SCT oil that you can get that already comes in its natural state, that's rich in those short chain fats, that's more hypoallergenic, because some people still can't do butter, they can't do dairy, they can't do ghee, they can't do cheese because their microbiomes are wrecked, they don't break it down, they don't have the enzyme pathways intact. And so SCT oil can actually be a huge benefit to people who can't even do dairy, but need to directly source those short chain fats to help heal the gut and get them back on track metabolically.
Awesome. Okay, so we've talked about, give us one more red light that you guys absolutely will have nothing to do with.
That's a good one. I would say for me, you probably have a different one, so we'll give you two answers. How about that? I would say any type of processed sugar, specifically high fructose corn syrup. I think it's a metabolic toxin as well. In fact, there isn't any fructose in corn. That's genetically hybridized and engineered into that product. And when you look at high fructose corn syrup, this is another fake food that's been introduced into our food supply that our ancestors never would have had access to. It's genetically engineered, and it's very disruptive to the liver, can definitely impact how your body uptakes glucose. So your insulin sensitivity can be dramatically altered. So you've ever heard of NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? This type of fructose, it's not the same as fruit. Fruit is great. Healthy, ripe fruit can be awesome, but this fake fructose product is damaging to the liver, and I think it's directly a part of the obesity epidemic. And then you pair it with seed oil, good God, you got the ultimate stack of metabolic obesity. So yeah, avoid any and all processed sugar, specifically high fructose corn syrup.
You know, one thing that I've realized that it's kind of a yellow light for me is actually dried fruit. Even when like that's it, like if you read the instructions, you know, like it might say like just dried pineapple or dried whatever fruit it is. It's just that, or, you know, kind of like I've found this like not fruit by the foot, but it's like a clean version, you know, where it's nothing but fruit. I just never feel great. So I will eat it like if I really want something sweet, but I never ever feel fantastic with it. But do you want to say another one that you don't like, Dr. Randy?
Well, I already gave you my high fructose.
I'm sorry.
Syrup. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dr. Rob. Dr. Rob.
I'm just going to make it, it's super simple. It just be processed foods. Specifically, you know, if you can't pronounce it, it shouldn't go in your body. The ingredients on a food list should only be, you know, literally like 1 to 3 ingredients. And so, but if you walk down, this is the aisle that I would say stay out of in the grocery store. It's going to be the cereal aisle, because it's loaded with all of these processed chemicals. You've got not only the high fructose corn syrup in there, but you've got all the different dyes that are in there. And they do it on purpose because they know our kids are walking through there. And so that's why it's important to me having 3 kids. And so when you go through there, the kids, they love the bright colors. In the United States, the brighter the better, because what they're doing is they're trying to mimic what the brain goes through, and when it sees these bright colors, which are ripe fruits. And so the body will have a reaction to cause a craving for that because of those colors, and they know that. And so they're marketing our kids, and I think it's a crime to start these kids eating these things at a very young age like that. So that's why I would say to stay out of that aisle and the processing that comes with that, because it's being touted as being healthy foods, especially when you have on the label on it that it's, quote, heart healthy. What people don't realize is, yeah, the American Heart Association, they're the ones that actually paid for that label to be on there. Not heart healthy. They just paid to be able to say that. And so that's where I would stay away from that.
Yeah, no doubt. Not in a generation where, you know, the obesity rates are through the roof, especially with our children. And the food industry knows this. If we're going to be honest, they spend billions of dollars a year marketing to our children. And so that's huge. The processed food industry, they're not making food that nourish our body. They're making food for profit and for shelf life. And that's just the facts.
So Dr. Randy, when you had gone through your cancer, obviously you changed your eating. Are you eating exactly the same way of what you did to heal your body? and are just as strict, or are you pretty strict but kind of maybe loosen the reins a little bit? Because, to heal, sometimes you've got to be a little bit more strict, and then once you've gotten healed, you can kind of loosen the reins a little bit.
Yeah, no. So I talk about my life, BC and AC, before cancer, after cancer. And there were mistakes I was absolutely making before cancer. And it wasn't that I wasn't intentional, but sometimes you get the wrong information. And then if you're like me, I'm so extreme. Now you're implementing wrong information in an extreme way. So I was the guy who used to eat multiple meals per day. I was the 5, 6, 7 meals per day guy, trying to be 185 pounds, forcing my, 6-foot frame to weigh more than it needed to. And so that was a huge mistake, because every time you eat, your body secretes insulin. And we now know if you've got hyperinsulin activity in your body from all the snacking and eating, you're definitely putting yourself into an inflammatory state and a metabolic state where you gain lots of body fat. Now, granted, I was very lean. I worked out all the time. But it was really because I was just cutting all of my calories, counting macros, eating multiple small meals a day to somehow stoke my metabolism, which I think the average American's eating like 18 to 20 times per day. So if eating a bunch of meals made us skinny, we'd be the skinniest country in the world. So I think that definitely played a role with me getting sick. I also was doing a lot of seed oil, especially fish oil. And that's a big thing, because everybody thinks that you need to be taking fish oil. And so I was the guy taking tons of flaxseed oil, fish oil caps, loading up on that. But that's also a polyunsaturated fatty acid. It's an omega-3, and it's very unstable under heat, light, and oxygen. So I was really creating a lot of oxidative stress along with the multiple meals, a lot of the protein bars, the protein shakes, all the snacking. I was eating lots of nuts and seeds and flax oil and fish oil. Those are some of the big, big mistakes I was making, versus going over to Spain, where I was there getting well, and then looking around and saying, you know what, people here, they look a lot healthier than we do in America, and they don't wake up and eat a bowl of cornflakes. Like, they're maybe eating a later lunch and then maybe having a dinner. So they were eating more like 1 to 2 times per day versus forcing themselves to eat all day long like we do in America.
Yeah.
Interesting, right?
Yeah. And I've written several books on fasting, but one of the books I've written is called One Meal and a Tasting. And I literally talk about all these thin women that I interviewed, thousands that I interviewed, and none of them ever said, oh, I do intermittent fasting or anything like that. But they literally ate one meal, like a nice meal, and then they had like a tasting. And that's it. That's what they did, every day. And I kind of talk about all the little hacks that they did each time. So talk a little bit about that, like during the meal, what is some of your green light go-tos? And I love that you said that about the bars, because I feel like people these days, even if it's a healthy bar, they're just grabbing these bars and eating them like out of control.
It's so true. Yeah, I'll let Dr. Rob handle this, but I was going to say, it's like if you put the protein bar on the counter and walk away for 2 weeks and come back, it does look the same. It's not real food.
Yeah, it's funny because even years ago, before we, before that had happened, we actually have and made several supplements and manufactured creating supplements. And one of the things that we had was a bar. And I can remember even going to a conference and me looking for something in my bag, and there was one of those bars that was in my backpack. It was probably in there for like 2 or 3 years. And I was just curious. I opened it up and it looked exactly the same as it did 2 or 3 years before that. And we just didn't know what we didn't know back then, because even though it was all organic ingredients, there were still some things, the preservatives inside there that you shouldn't put inside your body. So, green lights really for myself, and also for Dr. Rainier, it's going to be real food nutrition. And I think you may have even said it before, eating what our ancestors were eating, ancestral eating. And again, not eating several small meals a day. I was that person as well, eating a ton of meals a day. At this point, I eat 3 times a day. And a huge thing for me that I'm doing now that I wasn't doing before is I don't snack. So if I do 3 meals, it's doing 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, with 0 snacking in between any of those meals. One of the things that I do every single week is from Sunday to Monday, I always do a 24-hour fast. It's just something that I'm in the habit of doing. I like the way my body feels when I do that. And so I think another thing in that would be really just intuitive eating, really listening to what it is that your body is saying to you. Once you get your body to where it's in a really metabolically healthy place, your body's talking to you. It's telling you what to do, when to eat, what you should be putting into your body. I think people ignore it for such a long time. They just get used to feeling really crappy all the time.
Totally. No, that's huge. Yeah, because if you're not hungry, why are you eating? You know, I really try to follow that type of thinking as well, where if I'm not hungry, I'm not going to make myself eat. If your body needs something, it's probably going to tell you, and you listen and you eat. So having these scheduled, like I must eat 3 times a day, I must eat 1 time a day, I must fast, I must, only eat in a certain hour of eating. Maybe it's a time restricted eating where I can only eat here. I really think our ancestors probably weren't worried about that. Heck, they might have been worried about even having access to food. And so they were fasting, not because they had planned it, because that was what they had to do. So I think a healthy balance of listening to your body. And when you do eat, eating real food nutrition. So I obviously hugely endorse animal-based nutrition. You just can't get the amount of nutrients from vegetables that you get from animals. You can definitely have vegetables. I love fruits. I love certain vegetables. But if you're not eating real animal-based nutrition, you're really missing out on some of the most vital, key, especially fat-soluble nutrients that are essential for longevity and overall metabolic health.
I think it's funny. I think it's funny as well. We were just, just coming back from Los Angeles yesterday, and it cracks me up, even in the airplane, that they're giving snacks out to people as if they're going to starve to death on a 3-hour trip. It's like this. It's like just something just ingrained into our minds. Like, oh my gosh, I've got to have those, that bag of pretzels in order to be able to sustain life over the course of these next 3 hours.
Or you catch the early flights, you're there at the airport at like 5:30 in the morning, and everybody has to have breakfast. I'm like, listen, you're probably going to be fine. You'll land at your destination in a few hours, go eat then. So it's interesting how a lot of the food issues that we have are really more just about bad habits and patterns and things we maybe have believed or done for so many years. It's almost like on autopilot, and it's become unconscious.
Guys, I just want to interrupt for just a second, and I want you to hear Paul Saladino talk about why liver is so important. And if you don't like liver, we have another option for you.
Your ancestors were eating liver. And the reason that this sort of wisdom has been passed down is because liver is very nutritious. It's basically nature's multivitamin. If you look at the nutrients in meat, they're great. You've got zinc, you got B6, you got B12, you got some K2. But if you look at liver, it really complements what's in muscle meat. And there are many unique nutrients found in organs, specifically liver as a powerhouse of these. They're difficult to obtain outside of liver. Like meat and organs are like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together. They're supposed to be eaten together. The easiest way to eat liver is just to do it raw. If you don't want to eat liver raw, you can cook it. But the reason that I like to do it raw is because there are unique nutrients in liver that are probably somewhat degraded when you cook the liver.
This really is like the most nutrient-rich supplements that you can find. And they are amazing. I have tried them. I absolutely love them. So just go to heartandsoil.co, use the coupon code, and save you some money there. And one thing I want to mention, it's funny because for a while, my son, we'd have dinner and he'd be like, Mom, are you eating tonight? And I'd be like, no. A lot of times I'd say, no. And, I'd go out to dinner and like, if I'm not hungry, like I can still go to dinner with my family and I don't have to eat. And I have a friend that we went to dinner and she's like, well, I'm not hungry, but I guess I'll get something small. And I said, if you're not hungry, don't eat anything. Like, back to that intuitive thinking, it's like we have to mentally train ourselves to go, no, I'm not hungry. But the whole point is for us to have dinner together, is for us to enjoy each other and enjoy our company. And so just because I'm not eating doesn't change one thing about this meal. My quality time bonding with you is the most important. And I think we need to remind ourselves of that as well.
That's huge. That's really what I noticed, that we noticed over in Europe, especially in Spain, how you're getting together and it was fellowship. It was community. You're eating but you're also enjoying, you're not eating in, 15 minutes. What the most important food in America is how quickly you can get it, right? It's all fast food versus sitting down. In fact, if I don't have an hour to sit down, relax, and chew my food, I'm just not going to eat, because I don't want to just scarf down food. I want to enjoy the food, appreciate the food, and have the chance to connect with people that I care about. That's one of the rules I use. And usually that keeps you from making a bad decision too, because if you only got 15 minutes, you're going to make a bad decision more than likely.
I will tell you that that's my weakest thing that I do. I mean, I've tried all the hacks. So you talk a little bit about what you do. I mean, I've set a timer on my phone. I am one of those people, I walk fast, I talk fast, I do everything fast. And so I just want you to tell us, what are some things that you've learned of how you can just really slow down, enjoy the food, and take your time?
Yeah, good question. So that goes back to where, if you don't have time to chew your food in a peaceful place, even getting outside, you probably don't need to necessarily eat anything. I mean, being outside is so important to the digestive process, if you can get access to sunlight or mitochondria. And then chewing really starts that digestive process. Heck, it really already starts when you start to smell something. How many times have you not been hungry and then you smell something and you immediately hear your stomach start to growl because you're already starting that response? So I think sitting down, if you can get outside, chewing your food, and then really chewing your food, not drinking your food, right? Eat, stop counting calories, really count the nutrients, and chewing and that mastication really helps you start that digestive process. And then at any time you eat, you want to make sure you're eating a high quality protein, because as you're eating a high quality protein, something like beef or chicken, I'm big right now on ruminant animals getting the most bioavailable nutrients, animals that are grass fed. If you're eating those proteins, you're going to start creating and triggering the GLP-1 pathway in your small intestine to tell you that you're full and already start creating satiety. And that's the beauty of eating real food. If you eat real food, you're not going to snack all day long. You're going to be full. You're going to be satisfied because your body got what it needed.
So true. And I will tell you one thing that I have added to my stuff that I'm doing is I use Heart and Soil, and I use their liver supplement. And if you guys are not eating liver, you can use the coupon code ChantelRay10 and have that, because I will tell you, if you are one of those people that you don't like to eat liver, like me, but it has
Like
so
most
many
people.
nutrients. Yeah. And it's funny because a friend of mine who lives in Costa Rica, I came up with a trick where she literally took organic liver and put it in little tiny, tiny strips, like little ones, put it in the freezer, and then she would take it and like swallow it like a pill. But it's just a lot easier for me to take the supplement and call it a day. But talk a little bit about some other hacks that you guys have seen for metabolism. So you guys are kind of the metabolism kings, and you guys have done an amazing job of getting people to really get their metabolism to the next level. So give us a couple of little things they can do to get their metabolism really boosted.
You were asking about tips and tricks and little things that people can do. Is just, just be intentional with what it is that you're putting into your body. So one of the things that, the clients that we work with, we know, number one is we always test them. We don't ever guess. We want to assess and test and find out exactly what foods are metabolically healing for them. But for them, they also have a manual that comes with their program that tells them exactly when to eat and what to eat. Now, people can also do that on their own. You can be intentional with what's going into your body. A lot of the things that we've talked about with your, healthy nutrients getting into your body, no processed foods going into your body. And, write a list of foods that, that you will like. Don't write a list of foods that that you're going to hate. Write the list of foods that that you'll eat. Go to the grocery store, get those foods. Typically, they're going to be around the perimeter of the store. Do your grocery shopping on a Sunday, for example. List what your menu is going to be for the week. On Sunday, prepare your foods. put them in the containers, stick them in the refrigerator. So it's already been done. You don't have to think about doing it. And that's part of just being intentional with what it is that you're putting into your body. I know as when we travel, even for hotels that we would be going to, we'll look at the menu ahead of time. We'll make sure that there's foods on that menu that we're going to eat. If there's not at that hotel, we'll look, okay, where are places in the area? Because we travel so much and because of the friends that we have that are in the same industry, we'll ask them, hey, where are the foods in this area right here that are going to be safe for us to eat? And we'll already plan ahead of time to go eat at those places. So we're not at the seminar and they break for lunch and you're like, hey, where do you want to go? I don't know. Let's go to the closest place. That's not being intentional with what it is that you're putting into your body. So be intentional with it.
Yeah. And I would say stop dieting. Number one, stop dieting. If you look at the word diet, obviously DIE, not a great clinical outcome. I think we would all agree. It tells you right there in the word, because all diets have one thing in common. You're cutting calories. You're cutting out things that you love. It's very restrictive. It's very, it's a lot of guilt attached to that. And see, one of the things we do with our clients, Chantel, the number one thing we do is we have to get them to stop dieting. Eating isn't a sin. It's really essential to be alive. And when you're eating real food and you're nourishing your body with real food, you really get to eat as much as you want because your body knows what to do with that. And there's a healthy relationship there. I think for a lot of people who've maybe been years of the yo-yo dieting and all the calorie counting, have really developed a very unhealthy relationship with them and with food. And we always say, hey, listen, maybe it's not your fault. Maybe it's just your metabolism, because you give 5,000 calories to one person and you give the same 5,000 calories to the next person. One loses a pound and one gains 3 pounds. What was the difference? It wasn't the food per se. What does your body do with the food when you eat it? Does it burn it or does it store it? And that's why metabolic function is so vital to navigate this crazy world that we live in, and all the tricks and the trades and the hacks. They change today, they're here today, they're gone tomorrow. Getting back to foundational nutrition, listening to your body intentionally, and making sure that you're focused on creating strong metabolic health. I think those things go a long, long, long way.
Well, the one thing I was thinking about for you guys about your title is like, God forbid you're not happy one day, right? Like someone will look at you and be like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be the happy guy, or God forbid you're not feeling well one day, It's kind of like, oh, you're the happy, healthy guy, so what happened, right?
Right. Absolutely.
It forces you've got to be happy every day, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it is.
I love it. Well, this has been amazing. Tell listeners where they can find you and where they can follow you.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing, if you're listening, you're like, I don't know how my metabolism is doing. You can always reach us at metabolismscore.com. We've got a quiz right there that you can fill the quiz out. It's super quick. It's going to show you exactly what your metabolism score is, let you know how your metabolism is doing. So that's one place. And then if you ever have questions, you want more content from us, you can go hit us up on Instagram at and then the number 2.
Or H2.
Yeah, the H2 Life. So
Yep.
the number 2 Life. And that's us on Instagram. And you can always get content from us there and ask us questions.
I love it. Well, you guys stay tuned. We've got another episode coming up in just a few. Bye-bye for now.